Welcome back to Rooted Reflections, Episode 2, Children Borrow Our Calm. Hi friends, I'm Tammy with Resilient Roots Foundation. Each week we will spend a few minutes together looking through a different lens at children's behavior, emotions, and everyday struggles. My hope is that you'll leave encouraged, informed, and with a deeper understanding of the children in your life. Last week we talked about behavior. We talked about how behavior is communication. We talked about looking beneath the surface and asking what's really going on underneath that child's behavior and what they're trying to tell us. Today, I want to take that conversation one step further. Because once we understand the definition of behavior, the next question becomes, what do children need from us when they're struggling? One of the most important things I've learned over the years is that children borrow our calm. Have you ever noticed how quickly emotions spread through a room? When I was younger, I volunteered in a nursery for the very first time, and a mom brought in a baby who had a hard time separating from her parents. And what did that baby start doing? She started crying. You know what? The next thing you knew, every baby in that nursery was crying as well. They heard each other, and it just took over the room. One child becomes upset. A sibling reacts. A parent becomes frustrated. And before long, everyone feels overwhelmed. That's why we've said many times that our moods can rub off on each other. You can be with a friend who's having a really hard time and struggling that day, and the next thing you know, you're struggling now too, because you feel for that person, and our moods take over. Most of us have lived through moments like that, and lots of times it begins as simple as a difficult bedtime, an argument over homework, the child who suddenly falls apart over something that seems so small. Last week we talked about looking beneath the behavior. Today I want us to continue to look beneath what we see as we begin asking different questions. Not how do I stop this, but what does this child need from me right now in this very moment, in this struggle, and in this challenge when their world is just not making sense to them. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children in classrooms, churches, and in family homes. And one thing that I've learned over and over and over again is children of all ages do well when they can. And when they can't, they need support. Not because they're bad children, not because they're trying to make life difficult, but because they're still learning. I've mentioned before that I was the founder and director of a preschool in my area, and our preschool became known for helping children manage those big emotions. And it wasn't easy, and lots of times I had children in my office who were turning over chairs, who were telling me they did not like me, and yet we still worked through letting them have our calm when they could not have it. It would have been easy to tell the child how that behavior was not acceptable. We have so many things to do as a teacher, as a director, as a parent. It's hard to stop and focus on what that child needs in that moment. But from the very beginning, children look to adults around them to help them understand the world. Am I safe? Am I okay? As children grow older, those questions don't disappear. They simply get asked through their actions, which is what we see, through behaviors that leave adults feeling confused. Children may not always have the words to explain what they are feeling, so their actions often become loud. Loud in the way they communicate, as in meltdowns, but also loud in the way they don't communicate, but are silent or in the background. What does calm actually mean? Before we go any further, I think it's important to talk about what calm really means, because many of us hear the phrase, children borrow our calm, and we don't exactly know what that means, and we might become defeated and think, I'm not calm all the time. I lose my patience constantly. I get frustrated. Someone frustrated me at work yesterday. The good news is that calm doesn't mean being perfect. Calm doesn't mean never getting overwhelmed. Calm doesn't mean having the right words all the time. Calm means knowing how to return to calm. If any of you have ever been on an airplane, you will know that one of the first things the stewardess tells us, and showing us how to put on our oxygen mask, is that before you can put on your child or your partner's or the person next to you's mask, you have to put yours on first. If you can't breathe, you can't help someone else. Calm means recognizing when we've become overwhelmed and finding our way back. It means taking a breath before responding. It means stepping away for a moment when we need to. It means saying, oops, I messed that up, and I'll try again. I shared this with my staff over and over again at the preschool and with parents. You need to do what you have to do to keep your calm when you're working with our kiddos. That may mean putting an earphone in one ear and having nice calming music playing while you're helping a child with a meltdown. It may mean that you have to say, excuse me 1 minute, and you step out and you walk, you look at the trees, you take deep breaths, and then you come back and you try it again. And every time you do that, you're modeling for them how to handle and come back to their calm. Children do not need perfect adults. They need adults who can model what it looks like to recover. Because feelings aren't something we should fear or avoid. The goal isn't to never have feelings. The goal is learning what to do with them. If children borrow our calm, how does that actually happen? The answer is through something called co-regulation. That simply means helping a child find calm when they can't do it on their own. When a baby cries and someone rocks them, when a toddler falls and someone comforts them, when a child is overwhelmed and an adult sits beside them, helping them slow down, that's co-regulation. We are lending our calm until they can create their own. Right now, my sweet, beautiful, just turned 1-year-old granddaughter is learning to walk. And it's so much fun, and it's so exciting to watch her. But let's think about that for a moment. We don't expect a baby to stand up and run the first time they try. We hold their hands. We steady them when they wobble. We encourage them when they fall. We stay close while they learn. Emotional regulation works much the same way. Children are learning a skill, and a skill that takes time, a skill that takes practice, a skill that develops through relationships. Many adults tell children to calm down, but often they've never been taught how. It makes me think of my son. I was a parent who believed in timeout, who used timeout, who sometimes, really, lots of times, didn't know anything else to use but timeout. And I look back now and I think that's mostly because I needed a break. So instead of walking away and breathing, which I didn't know how to do yet, putting my son in timeout gave me the break I needed from what was happening in the moment. And lots of times, what was happening was I didn't like the way he was speaking to me or something that he was doing. So I sent him to timeout and sometimes even said, "Do not come back to me until you know the right way to talk to me." And that would escalate into, "When can I get out of timeout? I don't want to be in timeout." And instead of me regulating and giving him my calm, I matched his energy and where he was. And I bet a lot of us can relate to that. And sometimes I'm embarrassed to say that. But most of the time, I realize that we're all human and we all make mistakes. And I, myself, have come a very long way since that time. It took me years and years before I realized that I never taught him how to come back and talk to me differently. I taught him it was okay to be upset. I knew that much. But I didn't teach him how to handle that upset and what to do next. Children learn regulation by experiencing regulation. And I wasn't giving him that in those moments. That may be one of the most important things we can remember. Children learn regulation by experiencing regulation. The good news is, every time we model healthy coping skills, we teach without even realizing it. Things like how to handle disappointment, frustration, anger, and more. The ability to work through conflict. The ability to recover after a challenging moment. Those are skills we will use and do use our entire lives. They're not just in childhood. They're in friendships, in marriages, at work, in parenting. The goal is to raise children that are resilient adults, that know how to handle when the world is not going their way. And I bet everyone can put a hand up right now, maybe two, maybe even a foot or so, when you think about adults in your world that might not know how to handle when the world is not going their way. Maybe they didn't learn these skills. Or maybe they know them, but they had an oops that day, like we all do. As you go through this week, I want you to think about these questions. What helps you return to calm when life feels overwhelming? Who helped teach you that? And how might caring for your own nervous system help the children in your life? Thank you for joining me for this rooted reflection. My hope is that together we will begin looking through a different lens at children's behavior, emotions, and everyday struggles. Because when we understand what behavior really is, we stop seeing problems to fix and start seeing skills needed. And sometimes that small shift changes everything. Until next time, remember, behavior isn't something to stop. Every behavior has a story worth listening to. Children learn regulation by experiencing regulation. Rooted reflections, looking through a different lens at children's behavior, emotions, and everyday struggles.